Joining us now, Matthew Continetti. He's the editor-in-chief of the Washington Free Beacon, and they've been writing about a lot of cool stuff, including this. Matthew, great to talk to you. How are you?
I'm great, Laura. Thanks for having me.
So it was a shock that CBS actually did this report, but in fact, folks along the border, many of them of Mexican descent legally in this country, are finding their property and their personal safety jeopardized because of this new influx of illegals across the border.
Right. I'm shocked to see the mainstream media doing real reporting. But this is not the first time with CBS either. They also did some good scoops on the Fast and Furious scandal. I mean, look, it's obvious, right? If you're going to create a magnet and put out the prospect of citizenship or path to citizenship for whoever is in the country illegally at the time that this bill is enacted. And we heard from Janet Napolitano, of course, during the recent immigration hearings that her goal is to get moving on the so-called certification portions of the bill as quickly as possible, which means really as soon as the law is passed, I would say, within months, really, we'll start this process of legalization. Obviously, then, it's in everyone who wants to come to this country illegally and then become legal has an incentive to cross the border. So sad, but not surprised.
Matthew, the president in Mexico today and tomorrow, he addressed this issue of the immigration reform bill, and I think when he's off script, he says things that he usually ends up regretting.
We do so much business between our two countries that for us to constantly bog down on these border issues and debates instead of moving forward with a 20%.
Yeah. So Matthew, we're going to get bogged down on this border thing, okay? So Lindsey Graham and John McCain and Marco Rubio think, but after the bill is passed, they're really going to get serious about the border that they don't want to get bogged down on now.
Well, and we already see Rubio moving away from his own bill that he negotiated, saying to many conservative media outlets and talk outlets, we really have to make changes to make it pass the Senate, certainly if this bill were to pass the House. And the question here, I think Charles Krauthammer observed this recently, and I think he's right. The question here is really the enforcement provision. It's exactly what Obama doesn't want to do. He doesn't want to get bogged down in border security. I mean, he thinks, more or less the open borders are fine. If people want to come to this country, they should come to this country. There's an economic argument for that. I think it's false and not good for our national interest, but there's an argument. But, of course, most people, I think, and I think the polls reflect this, do want a secure border. And, in fact, I think many conservatives want to make sure that border is secure before we get to the question of what to do with the people who are already here. And if as much as the Democrats try to pull this bill away from enforcement and focus more on the legalization, I think it damages its chances of passing either house.
Yeah, I think the bill defeated is actually probably better from their perspective in many ways, because if the bill is jammed through, I think that it takes away an issue that they can use in 2014. Mm-hmm. So I think the bill should no way pass, and we now find out it has more waivers and exceptions per page than Obamacare, by the way. So it gives Janet Napolitano a massive increase in discretion. And I've actually read now most of the bill, and it is, it's typical, legalese and legislative verbiage. But when you see unreviewable and sole discretion mentioned again and again in the bill, it's trouble. And so this is why people are saying now, well, you know something? Republicans cannot negotiate with people when they're negotiating with people who are acting in bad faith, which is what Durbin and Menendez and Schumer and Obama are clearly doing when it comes to immigration. It's bad faith. That's why they sued Arizona, and that's why they went after Alabama. They wanted to shut down this enforcement stuff. And I think there's no credibility there.
Absolutely. And, the funny thing is, of course, we heard Obama blow up in that comment that you just played. Remember, the bill's success depends on him not saying things like that. In fact, him not becoming involved in the process at all. And this is why I think one of the real remarkable developments in politics in recent weeks, and I write about this today in the Free Beacon, is how really Obama is no longer in control of the agenda. He is really at the mercy of events now. This is a presidency that's adrift in many ways. And when you think about his only real chance for significant legislation, which is this immigration compromise, its chances of success, which I think are being overestimated in the Washington conversation right now. But its chances of success are dependent on Obama staying away. That's an odd place for a president to be in.
Yeah, well, for many, I'd say for beyond months, I'd say for years, the president has played this game where he talks about Washington as if he's not living in Washington. Like Washington, Washington they get all partisan about things. Washington doesn't get the people's business done. Congress needs to. So he doesn't want to deal with the world as it is. He wants to deal with a world where there are no Republicans, where he can just wave his magic wand and get a whole bunch of really liberal stuff done and call it a day. But that's not a serious approach to governance, and I don't think he ever had a serious approach to governance.
No, and he really is coasting off of the so-called accomplishments of his first 2 years. When you're exactly right, and he had the Nancy Pelosi as Speaker. He had 60 votes in the Senate, and there they were able to get through their Obamacare legislation. But even look at Obamacare now. Okay, he got that. It's coming down the pike. His own party, senators in his own party, including outgoing Democrat Max Baucus, are saying it's a train wreck. They're reports in the New York Times, of all places, of Democrats saying that they're very worried about how Obama is going to go down next year and how, or rather, Obamacare is going to go down and how it may affect their Senate races. Obama here too is at the mercy of events. He has no control over this. He forced this whale of a bill through against public opinion several years ago in 2010, and now his political future and the future of Democratic control of the Senate is completely at the mercy of how it shapes out in the next several months. And I think most people expect it to shape out very badly.
We're talking to Matthew Continetti. We only have a minute or so. This is play a soundbite for you that I think when people hear it, they're going to, again, scratch their heads about why we have these certain people on Capitol Hill or supposedly in leadership positions when they are at odds with the way most rank-and-file members of the Republican Party feel about an issue. Eric Cantor.
One thing that I'm very passionate about are the kids. The kids were brought here due to no fault of their own, had no idea that that's what was happening, and now America is the only place they know is home. Surely we can find it in ourselves to make sure that they have access to citizenship in this country.
So they got Eric Cantor out there saying we have to have more access to citizenship for the Dreamers. I mean, so how exactly is he different from Obama on this issue?
Well, on that issue, he's not different at all, and it speaks to a real problem in the House leadership. And we saw this in a recent vote on Obamacare last week, where Cantor had a conflict with the rank and file. We saw it, of course, earlier in the year with that kind of aborted coup against Boehner. We saw it with the conservative outrage when they floated in Politico last week this idea of somehow exempting Congress from Obamacare. Immigration reform, I think, if it clears the Senate, which is by no means a done deal, Laura, it poses a challenge, I think, to Speaker Boehner's leadership and the rest of the leadership class there.
I could not agree more. They don't represent the people of this party, and the people no longer want them up there. I don't see what credibility they have moving forward. Matthew Continetti, we really appreciate it. A great piece today in the Washington Free Beacon just called Out of His Hands. And he goes down the list of everything from losing the press even to all the Democrats retiring, failed gun control, and, of course, Obamacare more unpopular than ever today. Matthew, thanks so much.
Thank you, Laura.